systematically targeted Ethiopia. Whenever we see each other on the streets, the love that radiates between us cannot even be described in language. Because the core in their characters is love. Have missions. The mission of my generation was the famous vision of giving land to the tiller. That was the organizing principle, the organizing vision of students at Addis Ababa University. And the regime that came to power at the time, after the deposing of the Emperor, namely Mengistu's regime, did try in the initial stages to give land to those who farm it. That was a heroic vision. And of course, the rest is history. I want the generation that played here. Did you notice the radiance of their confidence? As I told you, my generation is a contaminated generation. It's a tribalistic generation. This particular identity was simply foisted on me, over which I have no control. What I have control over, which I should have control over, is to use my intelligence as we learned from the great Ethiopian thinker, Zara Yacob. What should the mission of this generation? May I make a humble suggestion? The mission of this generation should be resurrecting the resilience of Ethiopians at Adwa. They know me. I am a Tigrayan. I am an Amhar. I am an Oromo. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why should it matter? When you see me, for those of you who have never seen me before, what should be seen first is my humanity. They came in record numbers with spears and arrows and saved Ethiopia from the hands of a predator. Are we Ethiopians doing this now? What are these leaders doing and continue to do? They are teaching us to hate ourselves, to hate each other.
So, once again, thank you, welcome. I have Professor Teodros with me, with an extensive resume that I'm going to read in the middle of it. So, thank you again, Professor Teodros, for being with us. Just to introduce yourself a little bit with the people, just give us a brief overview about yourself.
My name is Prof.Teodros Kiros. I've been a professor of philosophy for the past 40 years. My career began as a professor of philosophy. I have been practicing this craft called philosophy, which is a specialized kind of activity. It's the activity of the mind. For the past 40 years, my career began at the University of Massachusetts in Boston, when I had a PhD, I think, at the age of 28, and then moved to Boston University and taught philosophy in the Department of Political Science for, I think, 15 years. And then moved on to Brown University, in which I spent about 5 years. Emerson College, another 5 years. And I finally landed at Berklee College of Music, in which I had the great honor to develop a program in philosophy, mind you, at a school of music, which was quite a challenge. Developing the artistic temperament to think analytically is quite an undertaking. But I was quite lucky by students who bonded with me, who seemed to have liked me, with a few who might not have done so, which is quite natural. And then, for the past 20 years, my good friend Skip Gates, who is the entrepreneur and scholar of scholars at Harvard University, recruited me as a Du Bois Fellow for about 25 years, which then eventually led to a position of teaching philosophy in Harvard's summer school. So at the moment, I combine 3 hats, I think. I'm a professor of philosophy at the Berklee College of Music, but currently on sabbatical. I continue to teach philosophy at Harvard University, which I intend to do to the casket if the university tolerate me. And finally, I have also been quite lucky to have developed a television program. In fact, may I brag, long before all these podcasters began germinating as self-imposed journalists, this Ethiopian, this African, dared to have his own television program, which was previously called African Ascent, which has now been rebranded to the Kiros Report for the past 18 years. But I assure you, I did not even make a single penny. Additionally, in between developing my commitment to my marriages, I also humbly share with you that I have published 25 books, a combination of philosophical texts for the African legacy, and also 3 novels and 2 novels on the way. I hope I have not overspoken. If I have, please forgive me. It's a function of what it means to be a human being. Unless we're very careful, we are inherently arrogant.
As you can see, we have a library sitting next to me. So we are here to learn. He has published, 25 books and over 200 articles. So it's an honor to be able to sit next to you and have this discussion. So I want to start actually because yesterday you and I and Dr. Gabriel had a conversation, and then you heard his presentation today. So I want to start, if you are able to summarize or what should we get from it, that would be a good way to start before we get to your questions.
That's an excellent question. Let me first say the following from the nerve center of my being. I'm truly delighted to the point of intoxicating joy to be surrounded by my people, Ethiopians. It is this kind of unity that was prominent at Adwa, that the great physician, who in addition to being a first-rate physician, also took it upon himself to be an authority on Ethiopian history, that we sit here to celebrate the meaning of Adwa. He's quite right. At the famous Berlin Conference, which took place in 1884, the European cannibals were desperately in search of land to develop a material foundation for a European civilization, systematically targeted Ethiopia, so that the history of this nation, a nation whose history did not begin at Adwa. Adwa is only a culmination of a history that began about 3.5 million years ago. It is Ethiopia, after all, that could proudly declare to the historian of historians that it is the birthplace of humankind. Remember our beautiful ancestor, Dinkenesh, the miraculous, which walked on Ethiopian lands about 3.5 million years ago. Additionally, and this is meant to be a challenging insight to this generation, when your teachers and professors at the universities to which you are going and at the universities to which you might go in the future refer to Egypt, try to remind them that there was no Egypt, which is now called Kemet, without Ethiopia. Egypt is the daughter of Ethiopia. This is our history. This is where our people come from. So what happened in Adwa, psychologically speaking, and the professor, the doctor is quite right, did not just happen that day. It is a culmination of a resilient historical people who have already given so much. In fact, at the great Senegalese historian, Sheikh Anta Diop, mark this down, Sheikh Anta Diop contended, were it not for the Ethiopian Kemetian present, there would not be a world. The world would have been simply a desert. It is 3 fossils that left Kemet and then moved towards Europe during the period of glaciation that human populations begin to emerge, and what we now call the world came into being. European historians were keenly aware, although they pretend otherwise, that the Ethiopian imagination, the Ethiopian presence, the Ethiopian contribution to the birth of Kemet is exactly what they had to dismantle in order to make the case that anything non-European is ontologically inferior, a point that the doctor made. So that the land grabbing that took place during that particular time could take place because it is a land that is being inhabited by ahistorical, inferior, non-thinking savages, and in that the savages would have to be eliminated in order for great European civilizations to come into being. It is this kind of history that the Palestinians, as I speak, are also being treated to. This is one point. The second central point that the doctor made is what I call the psychological diagnosis of what it means to be an Ethiopian. When one says one is an Ethiopian, one need not defensively think only in terms of being an Ethiopian who geographically located by the Red Sea, by the Suez Canal, so forth and so on. No, what it means to be an Ethiopian is that the Ethiopian is a symbol of the birth of humankind. I want each and every one of you, when you sit in your classrooms and when you are challenged provocatively by not very well-meaning teachers, I want you not to defensively be sad, but to know your history, the history that the doctor summarized for you quite well. Take notes, and when you write papers in the classrooms, make use of this history. You need not be defensive, nor should you be arrogant. All that you need to be is factual. There cannot be a history of humankind without acknowledging Ethiopia at the birthplace of it. This is the second point. The final and most important point that he made is that the Italians knew exactly what they were doing. It's not that they did not know the history of humankind, but this ravaging obsession with lands and resources invariably led them to make determined effort to see that these lands and resources are not manned and managed by Ethiopians, convincing themselves that these Ethiopians are intellectually inferior, not to even intimately know their own resources, not to say to know how to manage them. And in that, this great European empire, one of the weakest the European empires was Italy at the time, as a matter of fact, was given this opportunity to do this to Ethiopians. And what did our ancestors do? Which is exactly what we're not doing now. They made brilliant uses of our diversities, of our differences. And they made sure that we withstood this savagery as Ethiopians with a single entity, with a single identity, which doesn't mean that we're not different so-called nationalities. I don't like that term anymore, because look at what it has done to the idea of Ethiopianity. It would have been simply sufficient to say diverse cultures, which is a mistake that we're making now. Our ancestors did not make that mistake. Our emperors, in spite of their tribal origins, took great pride to present themselves always as Ethiopians.
Thank you for that summary, lesson learned. So I want to dive deep for all of us. It's great to be together like this. It's great to get together once a year and celebrate Adwa. It's great to say we won the victory. But what should we learn and how should we apply it to our current life right now?
Here, philosophers, at least certain kinds of them, are not too cavalier to provide solutions. The philosophers that I admire the most are the ones who question themselves and also question others. My vision of this particular event, when I was given the special honor to be a participant in it, was to have a dialogue with the young generation and pose this question to you. What is it that we must do in order to save our bewildered nation right now? All generations have learned from the great Martinican psychologist, philosopher Frantz Fanon, have missions. The mission of my generation was the famous vision of giving land to the tiller. That was the organizing principle, the organizing vision of students at Addis Ababa University. And the regime that came to power at the time, after the deposing of the emperor, namely Mengistu's regime, did try in the initial stages to give land to those who farm it. That was a heroic vision. It was compassionate. It was empathetic. It was respectful of human beings. It was keenly aware of the gaps in income and wealth among and between Ethiopians. And of course, the West is history. Like all regimes, the beginnings are always excellent. The middle is promising, but the ends are always tragic. I want the generation that played here. Did you notice the radiance of their confidence? Did you notice their beauties? Did you notice their confidence? Did you notice the hopes and dreams in their eyes? What should the mission of this generation be? May I make a humble suggestion? The mission of this generation should be resurrecting the resilience of Ethiopians at Adwa. What kind of resilience? Ladies and gentlemen, the diversities. When the emperor called for Ethiopians to come and save the land that will otherwise be grabbed by Italians, what did Ethiopians do? They came in record numbers with spears and arrows and saved Ethiopia from the hands of a predator. Are we Ethiopians doing this now? Why aren't we? Why are we taking second-rate leaders who have not even opened classical books to read them, to integrate them, to learn from them, so that they could become leaders worthy of their names? What are these leaders doing and continue to do? They are teaching us to hate ourselves, to hate each other. They have created a world in which, contrary to the kind of reception, love, care, attention, and recognition that I used to get when I came to this country at the age of 19, when I met Ethiopians on buses and trains. What kind of Ethiopians are we nurturing now? These are Ethiopians who are specializing to make someone like me invisible in buses and trains because they have already narrated me. They know me. I am a Tigrayan. I am an Amhara. I am an Oromo. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Our ancestors at Adwa knew the medication. What was that medication? Unity. And what are we doing right now? Why should it matter? When you see me, for those of you who have never seen me before, what should be seen first is my humanity. That I am a person, a human being, someone who looks like you. Does it really matter that you know what tribe I became born to, as if I chose to be born as a Tigrayan? This particular identity was simply foisted on me, over which I have no control. What I have control over, which I should have control over, is to use my intelligence, as we learned from the great Ethiopian thinker, Zara Yacob, to whom I devoted 2 books, who challenged the pastors of his time and told them what you need to do is use your intelligence to think for yourselves. There is no end to Ethiopian brilliance. Ethiopia gave us Kemet, Ethiopia gave us Gilgamesh, and Ethiopia gave us a major philosopher. I want you to read his work. Make an effort to read his work. And may I humbly suggest that when you get off from here, go to Amazon.com and look for 2 of my books on this great Ethiopian thinker. You're going to be so proud of him. The philosophy department in the West now has integrated the works of this philosopher in its curricula. European modern philosophy does not look European anymore, because in the wake of the 18th century, it was Ethiopian. This Ethiopian thinker was the founder of modernity, and not what some of your professors would tell you when you go to college, that it was Descartes. No, Descartes and Zara Yacob lived around the same time, but it is Zara Yacob, by stressing the role of intelligence in crafting a craft, an ethics of existence, a morality, a possibility of thinking for yourself, by insisting that what God has done for us, for all of us human beings, he says, is he has given us intelligence. Use that intelligence to interrogate your leaders in Ethiopia. Use that intelligence to resist hate, to resist tribalism. Think for yourselves, and like your ancestor, fight for a new Ethiopia. We need not throw the baby with the bathwater. Just because the Ethiopia had been cursed with incompetent leaders, it doesn't mean that the idea of Ethiopianity that our ancestors fought for need to be dismantled. What we need to dismantle are the inept, corrupt, incompetent, and unintelligent leaders across the gamut of Ethiopian leadership, but not the idea of Ethiopianity. That's a serious mistake. If I have anything to say to you, if I have made any kind of modest contribution, it is this insight. Do not throw the baby with the bathwater. Do not let anybody mislead you into thinking that the idea of Ethiopia should be destroyed. No. It is this Ethiopia, as I told you repeatedly, that even gave humankind the possibility of living the modern life that we are now living. Let's take pride in this history. Let's make constructive use of it. And please, 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 stop hating one another. We have already done enough discussion. Enough. Enough. We have already lost 2 million people. We have tried war. Your generation's mission should not be war. Your generation's mission should be peace and prosperity, by any means necessary. And no matter what our differences are, they should be resolved around round tables with dialogue. The use of intelligence, a God-given power that we have. Let's use it, and let's stop stereotyping one another. Stop it. Or else there will not be any Ethiopia.
Wow. Thank you for that message. I think we all needed to hear it. One thing that surprised me about the victory of Adwa, usually we have the saying, history is written by the victors. But we won, they still want to destroy us or still don't want to tell our story. So being here, sitting here and talking about the battle, the victory of Adwa is not an easy thing, because we need to be able to pass it on to our kids. Right now, if you can take a moment, there are some youths in here and then some in the back. If you were talking directly to them, I just want you to talk directly to the youths.
First of all, let me repeat what I said, assuming that I can remember it in total. I wasn't merely being poetic when I began the talk by celebrating this particular occasion that introduced me to a brilliant young man, to Skandar, to Akhlaq, and a few others that I don't know. These are heroes. These are lovers. They are so confident that they could afford to love someone who doesn't come from their tribes. Whenever we see each other on the streets, the love that radiates between us cannot even be described in language, because the core in their characters is love, radical love, a love that recognizes diversity, a love that encourages differences, a love that encourages conversations between people. What I want these young beauties radiating with intelligence that I saw on the stage is their innocence. And I appeal to the parents not to contaminate this innocence. Do not misteach them. Do not afflict them with your prejudices. If you are parents worthy of the name, give them the independence to carve out styles of existence for themselves. Do not say half-baked matters in front of them, because contrary to what you think, they are listening to you. They are going to imitate you. I'm very, very careful as a parent when my daughters ask me questions not to answer them, because most of the time I don't know. Let them love with whomever they want. Let them marry whomever they want. You are only biological parents. You are not gods. I really want to save these innocent faces from parental penetration. As I told you, my generation is a contaminated generation. It's a tribalistic generation. It's a generation that judges and that hates because of defective curricula of education to which these parents became accustomed, because we are all products of conditioning. The role of genes in the designing and cultivation of characters is really very limited, ladies and gentlemen. 90% of it is the work of conditioning. You could be conditioned by a wrong book, by a wrong parent, by a wrong priest. Look at some of our priests. Are they martyrs? They couldn't even negotiate differences among themselves in churches. Instead, they are giving us churches with tribal designations. How much more shame and how much more shame can we bear? And this is precisely what these young innocent faces are going to. The churches to which they go to, the parents by whom they are being raised, the classes that they are attending, the teachers who are educating them may be conditioning them in the wrong way. And one way of attending to this conditioning, is to be aware that conditioning plays a major role in the development of human personality, human character. And secondly, to be sufficiently secure, sufficiently humble, and when your child asks you a question, instead of giving them wrong answers, you might want to encourage them to answer it themselves. I appeal to parents, and I speak to you lovingly, perhaps I'm very daring, to be aware of this. And my message to this generation is to be a generation with a new mission. What I called the mission should be composed of three organizing principles: a search for peace, a practice of compassion, and a cultivation of prosperous institutions. And may I add the fourth one and most important one, to cultivate this habit of independent thinking at home. Encourage your children to think alone. Do not think for themselves. You are in no position to think for anybody. Just like me, I don't want you to take what I'm saying too seriously. It is merely a hypothesis. In fact, I feel ashamed. I feel as if I'm being colonized by words to speak so confidently when I shouldn't. Because I too am confused just like you. I remember when the war was raging in Ethiopia, I trusted some of our leaders who were speaking about genocides. And I began writing defensively, nationalistically. I wish I didn't. From this, I have learned the following: that the leaders are merely humans like you and me. They are not depositories of knowledge. They are just as confused as the people are. Be aware of this. So when these leaders, for all kinds of reasons, fight among each other, use your intelligence not to be guided by them. Instead, develop your own institutions from the bottom up. This is what I want this new generation to do. Develop new institutions. Because the institutions that we have now are hopeless. No wonder why we are in trouble. There isn't even a single leader that I can speak with a modicum of respect. Not one. This is how tragic the situation is. The only salvation? This generation.
Thank you, Professor. I wish we could have a whole day, just like the lesson. Let's not confuse our kids. Let's not cheat them. Let's not give them hate. So, from a Berkeley website, I'm going to read that and we're going to end it. Professor Tedros Kiros is considered a leading authority on moral philosophy and a leading voice of an African philosophy. He's a professor of philosophy at Harvard Summer School, has been W.E.B. Du Bois Fellow at Harvard University for the past 20 years, and he has been nominated 3 times to Berkeley Distinguished Faculty Award. So we have, like I said, a library here, so much to learn. So on behalf of MESA, on behalf of the people, on behalf of the celebration of Adwa, Professor Tedros, I thank you. We thank you very much for being here among us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.